Hello and welcome to Hard Talk Pakistan. In the 80s and 90s, she was considered one of the symbols of democracy for millions of Pakistanis. For many, she represented a real hope for the future. Today, however, after 2 terms as Prime Minister, she's been forced into exile and a general has taken over as President in Islamabad. So is this the end of the political road for Benazir Bhutto? Has she disillusioned her many supporters, or can she still hope to return to power for an unprecedented 3rd time? Ms. Bhutto, more than 2 years have passed since you've been back in your country, and there seems to be no sign of your return. So is this in fact the beginning of a slow but steady withdrawal from Pakistani politics?
Some people may think that, but it's a wrong impression. I'm very much in politics. I lead the Pakistan People's Party, and under my leadership, the party has been steadily making gains. Perhaps 2 years ago, some people were writing us off. But being abroad has enabled me to campaign effectively against fascism in Pakistan.
Let me put it like this. In April of this year, when the Supreme Court set aside your conviction on corruption charges, you said to the London paper The Times that you would return by August. Shortly afterwards, you said to the Indian paper The Hindu that you would return sooner rather than later. When will you go back?
That's right. We have not been able to give a date, and we are certainly not in a position to give a date. The general has yet to announce a date for general elections. Unless there is a schedule, we're very much in the dark, and we need to take things step at a time.
You mean you won't go back until elections are announced?
I mean that I'll have to go back according to the political situation in the country. Obviously, I want to go back and contest in the general elections. I could go back tomorrow if the general stopped the one-sided victimization that he has launched against my family and my party. I could go back as soon as the political movement that we have started picks up steam. Or I could go back when the general election schedule is announced.
One of the reasons suggests that one of the reasons you're not going back is because the political movement hasn't picked up steam. Is that the problem?
Yes, in a way, and no in a way. The political situation has certainly picked up steam, but we are also having staggered elections. And we want our party's chances to improve in the staggered elections. These elections may be non-party, so the direct candidates are unable to contest, but our indirect supporters and supporters of democracy are contesting.
You see, you're waiting for circumstances to move in your favor. But many people in Pakistan say that if Benazir Bhutto wants to become Prime Minister for a 3rd time, she has to come back home and she has to bite the bullet of possibly being sent to jail by the military regime. They say this will be her 2nd political birth. How do you react to that?
There are some people who say that, and they could be right. But on the other hand, my party and I have to judge it on the situation that we faced in the last 4 years. 97 to 99, 96 to 99, I was in Pakistan and we were losing. We were declining. It's only since I've been abroad in 99 that the entire cycle has been reversed. And today my party is on the winning edge. Today,
so from 96 to 99, your party was declining?
Yes. I was in the courtroom, people were writing us off, they were saying we were going to be convicted, and if we hadn't been able to get our argument across to the public in Pakistan through the press abroad and to the international community, maybe they would have succeeded.
But then isn't it an anomaly at the very point of time at which your party stops declining, you leave the country and go into exile?
I'm sorry, I failed to understand what you said, or maybe you didn't understand what I said. Can we just go back to the time frame again?
You said from 96 to 99 your party was declining, you were in trouble. In 99 you chose to leave the country and the party's fortunes start improving. Yes. Isn't that an anomaly? Isn't that a contradiction?
It appears an anomaly. It might seem a contradiction, but when I was in Pakistan I was unable to operate politically. I was incapacitated by an abuse of the judicial system. The incapacitation of my political leadership, either through imprisonment or through the judicial process, left me unable to lead my party. My husband has already been in prison for 5 years. My children's grandfather is in prison. My colleagues are in prison. I was not formally arrested, but I was paralyzed by the abuse of the judicial system, going from courtroom to courtroom and city to city, day to day. Since 99, I've been free of that paralysis that came from the judicial system. I've been free to travel across the world, meet with the international community, human rights groups, party activists, and to direct my party back at home. So my freedom has enabled my leadership to come into play and enabled my party to recover the ground we lost.
But the problem is that freedom happens at the same time as exile. You're free to act, but you're outside Pakistan. And what do you say to the people of Pakistan who may want to vote for you, but then turn around and say, but she's not here. She's left us in the lurch.
I say to them what I'm saying to you, that I fight for you in very difficult circumstances.
But from the safety of 5,000 miles away.
Well, if you call it safe, having a husband in jail for 5 years, if you call it safe, having your funds frozen, if you call it safe, living in uncertainty, yes, but I do not call it safe. And my people do not call it safe. And I must judge where I can make a sacrifice that helps my country. Let me put it to you. I feel some people want me to come back and imprison me, to silence me, because they're frightened I'm going to come back for a third time. And I'm going to avoid that trap because I intend coming back for a third time. I intend leading my party to a third time victory, and I'm going to play it on my terms that lead to victory, rather than on other people's terms that could lead to defeat.
You see, they sometimes twist what you said literally on its head and they put it the other way around. They say in 86, when she was first in exile, she returned. She felt that General Zia would put her under arrest, but she challenged him. She had the courage and the guts, and she took the country by storm. Today, she lacks the courage, she lacks the guts. She's scared to be arrested.
Provoke me some more.
No, I'm not provoking you. I'm simply saying to you what even your supporters say.
Provoke me more by saying it's unnamed supporters. Provoke me any way you like. But I'm here to act on an agenda to get democracy back to Pakistan. I'm not here to be provoked.
But can
I'm not here to get angry. Everything that you say now is speculative. But all I say to you is do a little research of where the PPP was in April 99. And do a little bit of research of where the PPP is today. And you'll find out.
Absolutely. I accept. From 1999 to 2001, the position of the Pakistan People's Party has changed beyond description. I concede that. Yes. But to move from this position to a point at which you can come to power, people say she has to walk the gauntlet of jail. She has to show the courage of 86. And when you don't show it, they say, well, two things could have happened. In 15 years, maybe she's grown old, and maybe the fire's dulled. Or they say, after 2 experiences as Prime Minister, she's scared that people are disillusioned and they won't respond to her call. Which is it?
None of that is true. My opponents say that, but not my supporters. Of course, I'm older. But if I didn't have the fire to fight, I would have done a deal to get my husband out. I would have done a deal to get myself saved. I didn't do that because I love my country and I love my people and I'm going to stick by them. And others can say what they want. You, Mr. Thapa, can say what you want. But I intend leading my country back to democracy. And I intend giving my country my leadership on my agenda.
Ms. Bhutto, you said a very interesting thing. You said, if you wanted, you could have done a deal. Many people speculated, particularly in the last 6 months of this year, that there were moments when you were very close to doing a deal. Did you ever consider doing a deal with General Musharraf?
Personal deal, no.
A political deal?
Yes.
You did consider it?
Not I, but my party and the opposition alliance, yes.
What sort of deal was this?
We advocated when the generals first took over that there should be an interim government of national consensus and that interim government should create the conditions within the country for the elections that were due in 2002.
What did the general say to you?
Well, I didn't talk to him directly. This, I said to you, was not my personal matter. It was a matter of the party and the opposition alliance. And our party and the opposition point of view was that there should be an interim government of national consensus, which the general refused. We said there should be an end to one-sided victimization. Well, he was happy to end the victimization of the Nawaz family and the MQM, but not the People's Party, because he recognizes that we are the threat.
You know, earlier this year you said...
Please let me finish.
Sure, go ahead.
So there have been many attempts to squeeze me with a view to reaching a personal agreement and getting my party to accept enormous powers for the army and for the president, which we have resisted. And it's taken a tremendous amount of courage.
Well, you say you resisted it, but forgive the interruption. You said earlier this year to the Pakistani newspaper, Asif, that you would
Which paper?
the Pakistani newspaper Asif that you would be happy if General Musharraf were to take over as president, that would pose no problem for you. You also said to the same paper that you prefer General Musharraf any day to Nawaz Sharif. Now, were those things that you were saying in the hope of consolidating a deal with the regime?
Let me just draw your attention to the clarification issued by my press office that the story that was run in The Nation misquoted Asif on the presidency issue. And our position is very clear. General Musharraf has to ask us for the presidency before we will even consider it.
So no deal with the government whatsoever?
He has not asked us for the presidency, and we have not considered it. As far as your second condition is concerned, Nawaz Sharif was a more brutal fascist than Musharraf is. And in my party, from Khyber to Karachi, people think that Musharraf is a better dictator than Nawaz Sharif. He may be our ally now, and I hope that he will support democracy. But what he did when he was working with the generals to trample democracy since 1988 is a bitter part of our tragic history.
Okay, you say that you're going to go back when you think the time is right. You haven't said when that will be, but you're waiting for circumstances in
I'm
Pakistan.
not waiting for circumstances to develop. You're trying to get the date out of me, and I'm declining to give it to you.
Okay,
And the
I'm
date
going further
will be
actually.
given,
I'm now about to suggest
the
to you...
date will be given when we are ready to give it, rather than when others would like to know or when it's going to occur.
I'm about to suggest, Ms. Bhutto, that that date is in fact now receding with every possible day, because General Musharraf has now declared himself president. He's now President Musharraf. Nawaz Sharif is in exile. You are out of the country. What do you think are the prospects for the restoration of democracy in Pakistan in these circumstances?
It's quite true that we are in exile because there's dictatorship in our country. There is a lack of justice. There's a lack of freedom. People who oppose the regime are locked up and silenced.
Quite right. So the date when you can return is just getting further and further
You
back?
say it's getting further and further away. Well, maybe it is. Maybe you and Mr. Vajpayee and the Indian government know a little bit more about Mr. Musharraf's plans than I do. I can only speak to you on what I know about Mr. Musharraf's plans. And what I know about his plans, he's planning to hold elections in October 2002.
Do you expect
well,
him to stick
please.
So to continue.
All right. You said my date is receding, and I said maybe you're privy to some information from New Delhi that I am not privy to. But according to the information that I am privy, there's a commitment to restore democracy by 2002, and I will be going back. But if there's going to be prolonged dictatorship, if the elections are going to be postponed, and there's going to be prolonged dictatorship, I will stay to fight dictatorship. I will not let my voice be silenced. I feel...
But when you say stay to fight dictatorship, do you mean stay abroad to fight dictatorship?
Wherever I think it's fit. As I said, I want my voice not to be silenced, because my voice is the voice that gives hope to millions of people.
The interesting conclusion...
But I do feel, Mr. Thapar, that elections will be held, because the situation in Pakistan is alarming. And I do feel, Mr. Thapar, that New Delhi is making a colossal mistake if it believes that Mr. Musharraf is going to play a peace card to sustain himself in power. This entire visit is geared to take pressure off from Afghanistan. I
want very much, Ms. Bhutto, to talk to you about the forthcoming summit that's going to be taking place on the 14th of July between President Musharraf and Mr. Vajpayee. But simply to conclude this part before we move on to the next, the suggestion that you're giving me, and I ask you to clarify this, is that your date of return is going to be determined by your opponent, President Musharraf. If he calls elections, you'll go back, but if he doesn't call elections, you could find yourself stuck in exile for an interminably long period. In other words, he's calling the shots, not you.
If you want to put it that way, you can. But I put things another way. I believe my party and I are calling the shots, and that under my leadership, the party has made enormous gains. And given these gains, and given the popularity of my party, Mr. Musharraf has two choices, either to accept my return or put off those elections indefinitely. That's a choice he's going to have to make, because I and the PPP are dictating the agenda rather than the generals. If the generals could dictate the agenda, I would do a deal with them and stay out, and they would get a puppet parliament that would give enormous powers to the president and to the military.
So whenever elections are held, provided they're free and fair, you're absolutely confident that you and the PPP will win them and you will be back in office for the third time as Prime Minister?
That's right.
Okay, let's move to talk about the subject that you raised a moment ago, the summit that will be happening on the 14th of July between President Musharraf and Prime Minister Vajpayee. It's widely expected both in Delhi and in Pakistan that there are hopes for some sort of concrete settlement, and yet you've repeatedly said that this summit can't yield anything at all. Why?
I believe that dictators lack the mandate to represent their country, and any agreement that is reached would be an agreement with a dictator. Forget about my feelings. I believe even the Pakistani army could tomorrow turn around and say, well, General Musharraf's now a retired man. He had no mandate. And certainly key elements within our own population would say that too. I think it's far more important for there to be an agreement between democratic countries and between democratic governments that have the legitimacy to co-opt the people with them on any agreement.
So are you also saying that Mr. Vajpayee is taking an unwarranted risk in meeting a man you described as a dictator, a man without a mandate?
I am far from making any comments on Mr. Vajpayee. The Indian Prime Minister knows what reports he has, and on that basis, he has made a judgment for himself.
Do you think it's the right judgment?
I prefer to speak about myself rather than to speak about others.
Then let me put this to you. Many people, both in Pakistan and in India, say that the best opportunity for a solution on Kashmir will come about when there's a military regime in Islamabad and a BJP government in Delhi. Why do you sound as if you disagree with that assessment?
From my country's history, whenever there's been a war or a conflict or tensions have increased, it's always been when Pakistan has had either a military dictatorship or an indirect military dictatorship. The periods of peace we had was when my father was Prime Minister at the time of Simla, or when Rajiv Gandhi came to Pakistan in 1988. And even during my second term, while the verbal bellicosity, or what the word is, was there were no hot pursuits or cross-border violations. The intensity of violence was not as grave as it is today.
All of that is true. But there is something else that you've been saying, and it's been heard in India by many people. You said that you regret the way you conducted your Kashmir policy in terms of tone and in terms of aggressiveness. And you said one of the factors that pushed you to do this was the army. Now surely, if the army itself is in power, the army has the opportunity to overcome those obstacles in a way in which you as civilian Prime Minister never had.
I said that I tried to win over the military apparatus by having consensus on security issues. And I believe that we did succeed in keeping the level of intensity down and having important agreements. But when the military is calling the shots, something else happens. Vajpayee comes to Lahore, and within a short while there's a backlash. Musharraf can go to New Delhi, but there will be a backlash. The fact is,
there will be a backlash.
I think there will. I think this is a tactical move.
From the army?
It's on Musharraf's leadership. Why should I say the army? That's a whole institution. But I would say the generals in power. I believe the generals in power are under pressure on two counts. They're under pressure because of the sanctions on Afghanistan that have led to pressure on one front. They want to relieve that pressure. The second is that they want to give a good guy perception to the international community as 2002 appears so that they can cling on to power. It's a power game rather than a peace game.
Okay, at this moment in time when the two heads of government in India and Pakistan are about to meet to
One head.
Well, they're both heads of government.
Well,
both heads of government. You do not wish to recognize President Musharraf, but he is head of government.
I know there's a great degree of enthusiasm for him in New Delhi. I know you're doing up his home for him, and the boy returns home, good for him. But I must tell you how the Pakistani people think.
Okay, let me rephrase that.
He is the de facto president of Pakistan.
The president of Pakistan are about to meet, and there is an expectation that they may move towards some sort of solution of the long-standing Kashmir problem. In recent years,
are allowed to delude themselves.
Well, if it's a delusion or not, time will tell. But in recent interviews, you've begun to talk about proposals that you think could help bring about a solution to the Kashmir imbroglio. Spell those out for us.
My party and I believe that India and Pakistan have differing perceptions. When I say India and Pakistan, I'm not talking about Musharraf and what his perceptions could be. But at the public level, there's a very strong Kashmiri population in Pakistan. The Kashmir issue is a very important issue for Pakistan. We've had 3 conflicts, and with each conflict we say the line of control is the international border de facto. What happens is there's yet another conflict. So my party says that we've now got to go beyond conflict solutions, because those solutions never work given our differing perceptions, and go to conflict management.
How would that happen?
Well, we're proposing that there should be safe and open borders between the 2 halves of Kashmir, that India and Pakistan and the Kashmiris should negotiate on how we can have safe and open borders that can lead to a healing of hearts, that can allow people, Indians and Pakistanis and Kashmiris, who have lost sons and brothers and fathers in a fighting that has gone on for more than a decade.
But while these borders are safe and open, does both sides retain what they already possess? In other words, Pakistan keeps Azad Kashmir and India keeps its own Kashmir?
Without prejudice to the United Nations Security Council resolutions. Without prejudice to those resolutions, the 2 countries manage the conflict so that peace and can be built up and tension can go, and we can get a generation that is able to see each other without walls of blood coming before them.
Is a plebiscite at some future time part of your scheme of things? Because you keep saying without prejudice to the United Nations resolution. So what does that mean?
If you give me a chance, yes. I'd hold a plebiscite tomorrow. That's my favorite solution. But there are some others who say it should be independent. There are still others who say, well, it's part of India. It's part of India. So I am not the whole party. I'm only one of the parties. The problem gets when we want to solve the whole issue our way. And I'm saying that maybe we ought to first get to know each other and build the trust and remove the walls of blood, and then see how things go from there.
So you're saying get to know each other, build the trust, open the borders, let the Kashmiri people on both sides meet and live together,
Unite.
And then perhaps in future, at some indeterminate time, there could be a plebiscite of some sort to determine their wishes.
There could be if you ask me, plebiscite. But what solution there will be, let the others come up with it at the time. But let the people of Kashmir who have been divided territorially, without prejudice to that geographical division, let them at least unite in hearts and minds. And let the Indians and the Pakistanis, both claiming to be the saviors of the 2 sides, let them also see each other without demonizing each other.
Would independence
and the world is changing.
Would independence for Kashmir be part of your scheme of things? Not now, but maybe at some time in the future?
Listen, my scheme of things would be plebiscite.
Would that plebiscite acknowledge independence as an option?
The Kashmiris' solution would be independence. The New Delhi solution would be Indian.
Quite right. Would your plebiscite acknowledge independence as an option for them to vote?
I am going to build confidence. I am not going to sit here as Nostradamus and tell you what's going to happen.
Not Nostradamus, but it sounds as if you don't want to comment on independence because you don't think you can carry your country on that option. That's not an option you're offering whenever the plebiscite is
That's very speculative. I believe that the people of Jammu and Kashmir should have the right of self-determination. I believe in freedom. I've supported freedom everywhere. And the Indians have supported freedom too. They fought against the British. And they've supported freedom in other parts of the world. But somehow when we come to India and Pakistan, we run into deep prejudices. Of course, I think I'm right. I'm sure Indians think they're right. But I think the time has come to stop scoring points. I think the time has come to say, let's get to know each other. Let's try and build some peace. Let's travel across. Let's trade across. Now, if you want to come to
really are offering a new opportunity. This is a different Benazir Bhutto to the one that used to shout Azadi, Azadi, Azadi on television.
Certainly when I talked of Azadi, I believed in freedom, but it's different from the tone and the tenor that was aggressive. I believe in freedom, but I also believe that India and Pakistan need to live together, work together, trade together, along with the other countries of South Asia. I see other countries prosper. I see European Union people traveling across all the time.
Forgive the interruption. We're running out of time. We've got 30 seconds. Let me ask you one final question. People in India, people in Pakistan are listening to you talk about what is quite an imaginative solution. If you should ever come to power, do you have the capacity and the guts to force this through, or will political compulsions force you back to Azadi and the old hard line?
I am a person who has been elected by the people twice before. I can carry the people of Pakistan. We are committed to freedom, but we are also committed to peace, and we are committed to the idea that our solutions have other partners.
But are you also committed to the new policy on Kashmir that you've just begun to enunciate?
Very much so. I would like to see the nations of South Asia work together rather than tear each other apart.
On that note, Benazir Bhutto, thank you very much for talking to Hard Talk Pakistan.